Scroll through almost any mainstream social platform today, and you will see self-commodification treated as a career path. Digital hookup culture and platforms like OnlyFans have normalized hypersexualization to the point where it is simply the background noise of modern life. We are watching a strange paradox. Mainstream culture now celebrates behaviors that historic Christianity explicitly warned against as spiritually fatal. These actions are packaged and sold as ones of moral liberation and personal empowerment. The moral boundaries of society have inverted. We have reached a point where behaviors once identified as spiritual toxins are now labeled as good, while traditional standards are treated as evil. This cultural dynamic follows an ancient documented blueprint. It represents the successful activation of a strategy of spiritual subversion that has been used for millennia. To find the origin point of this tactic, we look to the Old Testament books of 1st and 2nd Kings. Queen Jezebel serves as the historical origin and ultimate archetype for this specific brand of spiritual compromise. Jezebel instituted state-sponsored pagan worship as a matter of national policy. She systematically hunted down and killed the true prophets of the land, replacing the worship of God with a mandatory alternative. This ancient terracotta idol provides a physical anchor for the reality she forced upon Israel. Her strategy relied on manipulation and seduction to replace exclusive devotion to God with the physical practice of idolatry. This defines the Jezebel spirit. It operates through an internal seduction away from holy devotion and into moral decay. Because this attack targets the character of the believer from within, it poses a unique threat compared to an external physical assault. By the 1st century, this archetype had adapted to infiltrate the early Christian church. Look at these ancient marble columns in the city of Thyatira. In the book of Revelation, Jesus issues a specific, severe warning to the church in this exact city regarding a toxic influence he calls that woman Jezebel. The believers in Thyatira faced a constant social pressure. To maintain their standing in the city's powerful trade guilds, they were expected to participate in pagan feasts and sexual immorality. Refusing meant risking their livelihoods. The writings of the Apostolic Fathers document how false teachers, operating from inside the church, began to twist the teachings of the Lord. They used these distortions to justify sinful desires, making spiritual compromise seem like a theological choice. The shepherd of Hermas captured this decay with a vivid metaphor. It described a church so weighed down by the cares of this life and social pressure that it was falling asleep. Hermas warned that the church was entering a wintertime era. The culture was growing so dark that the righteous and the sinners were becoming indistinguishable. The normalized pressure to spiritually assimilate and blend in served as a quiet, constant subversion of the church's identity. For many, the threat of social erasure was more immediate than the threat of Roman lions. The early church fought back by drawing absolute boundaries. This papyrus fragment belongs to the Didache, or the Teaching of the 12, an instructional manual designed to prevent believers from assimilating into the surrounding culture. The Didache drew a hard line, explicitly categorizing adultery, lust, promiscuity, and idolatry as part of the way of death. There was no room to negotiate these behaviors into a faithful life. Defying these cultural norms carried a price. This woodcut illustration from Fox's Book of Martyrs captures the brutal reality that often followed a refusal to bend to the spirit of the age. Historians record the account of a young Christian named Peter, who was executed because he refused to offer sacrifices to the goddess Venus. He chose to publicly call out the societal debaucheries done in her name, rather than blend in. Resisting the Jezebel spirit required believers to forfeit their social standing, their economic safety, and their lives. The archetype demanded everything, and the faithful gave everything to resist it. The modern Jezebel spirit no longer requires a physical pagan temple or a state-sponsored altar to operate. The smartphone screen and the algorithm-driven digital ecosystem serve as the modern delivery system for this compromise. We face a pervasive pressure to compromise biblical sexuality and holiness. This digital system actively rewards moral inversion, offering validation and financial gain to those who conform to its standards. This digital culture mirrors the social and economic traps of the pagan guild feasts in Thyatira. In both eras, the system uses the promise of validation and security to normalize spiritual compromise. How do believers survive and operate faithfully inside a culture that celebrates the way of death? In the patristic era, early church leaders like Irenaeus championed a concept called the rule of faith. They treated theology as a sacred trust to be safeguarded, refusing to modify the faith to fit modern sensibilities. This aligns with the unified mandates found in the New Testament. From Jesus' prayer in John 17 to the letters of Paul and John, believers are called to actively reject conformity to the patterns of the world. For the modern believer, this requires sharp spiritual discernment. It demands the maintenance of a distinct, uncompromising holiness, even when the surrounding culture offers rewards for assimilation. The Church's mandate is not to adapt its morals to survive in the dark. It is to remain in the world, but not of it, standing as an uncompromised beacon of light.